Hello, everybody, and welcome into episode 8 of the West Coast T-Check. I'm the Deits. We got the Big Skinny, and we don't have the host this week. He is out for week 8, but we have the Big Boykins, a.k.a. Brandon Boykins. He is an editor at KTVN2 News, coverage you can count on, a co-worker as well. Brandon, great to see you. I know we really don't get to see each other in person that much, and we had Andrew Nepson on, and it was interesting to see him through a webcam. But how you been? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm doing good, doing as best as I can, especially with the pandemic. Everything's slowly starting to open back up, so I'm happy enough to just be happy enough to be here. For any of you guys who don't know, how's it going? My name is Brandon Boykins. I'm, like you said, editor at KTVN2 News, and just a guy who just enjoys talking sports, making people laugh, literally everything in between.
And everything in between. Well, we have a lot to talk about here today as we got NBA headlines. We're going to recap the All-Star game and talk about some big-time players, possibly making some big-time moves. And Steven, I know we all have predictions. I know the host, you and me, all have predictions. Let's start off for us.
So this is dating back to the very end of our previous episode. We made our predictions for the skills competition, the 3-point contest, and the slam dunk contest for this past Sunday's All-Star festivities. Nick and I had a big donut. We chose just the wrong guys. We all chose the wrong 3-point champion, which was Steph. He just took over the competition. We'll get to that in just a sec. Jason Tatum, we all had Jason Tatum winning the skills challenge, but Domantas Sabonis won it. And then for the slam dunk contest, there are 3 contenders. We all went for just one of them. So Robert, he got Cassius Stanley out of Portland. He got it right. So Robert is the big victor from the All-Star weekend. And I'll, if I may, I'll get started on the All-Star game talks. I mean, Steph Curry really took over the 3-point contest. His range from all over the court during the All-Star game, and it was really, the cherry on top was that 3-point shot in the corner that, midair, he turns around, he gives that little cheeky look to the sidelines, and it just goes in. He's mastered the art of the 3-point shot. He's by far the greatest shooter of the history of the NBA. It might sound a little bit biased coming from a Warriors fan, and Robert would probably attest to the same. But I mean, it was just nothing short of spectacular. The performance that the entertainment that he brought to Atlanta this past weekend. Brandon, what were your thoughts on All-Star Sunday, not the All-Star weekend?
All-Star Sunday, it was like you said, it was all in all a spectacular show. I mean, for everything they were able to do, because of COVID and making sure the players are safe and, following the right protocols. I think all in all, it was a successful day. Just like I said, with Clay shooting Giannis's 16 for 16 just dunk night. It was, like I said, just all in all, enjoyable day from all of the All-Stars, from everybody that participated in the skills challenge. Same with all the newcomers that participated in the slam dunk contest. I know some people would have wanted to have seen, LeBron or definitely Zion to participate in, the dunk contest, but I'm sure that's something we'll, either hopefully get sometime in the future or, just something we can expect for future All-Star breaks.
I think the way I looked at this All-Star game Sunday, I think everything went pretty smoothly. The skills challenge, I think, really stood out to me. Domantas Sabonis had a very great start, hitting his threes really quickly and then go against Vucevic, and they fought for that 3-pointer. But Sabonis just got off to hot starts, and he hit the threes when it counted. So he got the job done, and he also warmed up beforehand to kind of give him a better advantage in that skills challenge. Now, Simmons for the Portland Trailblazers did put on a show as well. I thought he was going to kiss the rim, but he was just a little. He was a little, short on
Yeah.
it. But it happens. It happens. But Steph Curry beat Mike Conley, and man, you saw Mike Conley's face when Steph Curry hit that last rack, and it's as a Warriors fan, you expect that. You expect Steph Curry to come out firing from 3-point land. I will say I didn't really like the dunk contest at halftime. Do you guys agree with me? Disagree with me? We're
Yeah.
gonna start with the big skinny first. Do you agree or disagree that the dunk contest should be at halftime, or it shouldn't be at halftime, and should have more contestants be in it?
Well, I'll try to answer your question. The problem with the slam dunk competition, I mean, it was at halftime. I think that's a good spot for the slam dunk in this circumstance. I mean, this is kind of like the prime time event, but the slam dunk contest is like honestly becoming more and more irrelevant because I feel like more people, just regular Americans like myself, like Robert, like Brandon, we can relate more to the 3-point shot because Steph Curry is shorter than me. Steph Curry is, along the lines of, a lot of, in terms of height, he's comparable to a lot more Americans than, the 7-foot guy, like Obi Toppin, who's 6'11", who is, putting on a good show for the slam dunk contest. I think the 3-point game has just, revolutionized the game, and it's carried over to the All-Star game. And I think that the 3-point contest is definitely the marquee event now. And I would say that over the last few years, I think since the last Levine and Aaron Gordon showdown in the slam dunk contest, the 3-point contest has been the marquee event for me. So I think it's tough to say, like, for the slam dunk contenders, that there's only 3 of them. If it's going to be the prime time event at that for like the halftime show, you gotta have more guys. You can't have just more than 3. And the 3 guys, I mean, I never heard of Cassius Daly before. I barely knew who Anthony Simmons was. I know who Obi Toppin was, but that's about it. It's a lot of irrelevant players. If we can get guys like Brandon mentioned, Zion into the competition, that will make it a bigger draw, and to have some good competition around them, and that will bring the slam dunk competition back to relevancy. But at the moment, it's nowhere close to the 3-point competition.
Brandon, do you agree or disagree with Steven on that?
I think for me, like I said, just because for me being a big guy when it comes to playing basketball, and like I said, just being more accustomed, you could say, to just big guy basketball. For me, I would say that the dunk contest is still, at least for me, my personal favorite event of the All-Star break, obviously besides the game itself. But I would agree that it is becoming irrelevant just because of the fact that, I mean, we've seen almost every single dunk there is in the book. I mean, that's you could say like the biggest downside of when it comes to the dunk contest, and also just having the big, all-star names or high caliber names in the dunk contest as well. But excuse me. But I would say it would definitely, be the just the fact that we've literally seen it all. Like, unfortunately, it's not like a 2K simulation where you could, throw these contestants that are in there and have them, do like a cartwheel and then jump over like 2 Kias with some fireworks and then, do a slam dunk. That's just, obviously it's just never going to be the case, but it's still just the fact that we've seen almost every single dunk in the book. And again, with not having the big names like Zion, like Zach LaVine, like Aaron Gordon, and obviously previous contenders since then, I think plays an even bigger part in having it not be so built up as much as they try and make it be, because I'm sure the we want to say the executives or whoever it is that makes the call on that, calls the different all-stars and calls these different athletes of Zion and everybody else, hey, would you like to participate? And obviously it's up to them on whether they want to or not. I would say just off of the fact that we've seen almost every single dunk there is in the book, whether in the All-Star break or even just in a game itself, that it's just becoming just boring in a way, if not just kind of just by the books of like, oh, like dang, too bad he couldn't get that that 360 windmill for the second time in a row, so he's just gonna do just the normal 3-point bounce and launch it as high as he can, and that's it. So I think for me, like I said, just personally, I still enjoy the dunk contest, but for this year that we had seen on Sunday, I think it was very lackluster. But again, I think that still plays in the part of not having the big name all-stars, and obviously just because, I mean, we've again just seen every dunk there is.
And the dunk contest being at halftime, I think, put off a lot of people because I feel like I definitely wanted to see at least maybe 5-6 people and maybe be a little bit more organized. And yeah, seeing some bigger names make a lot more sense. But the 3-point contest, this became a league of 3-pointers, and people love seeing threes from above and beyond. I mean, we get to see Dame time. We saw Stephen Curry, like Dame time, call a game for Team LeBron, and that's how Team LeBron got the dub against Team Durant. As we got to see that game as well, I'm going to just slowly talk about it, and then we're going to move on to breaking news in a sense. But Team LeBron did beat Team Durant 170-150. Kevin Durant did not participate alongside Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and Devin Booker. So many names that just were not able to play in this game, either because of injury or of COVID-19. But Giannis went 16-16, 3 from 3 from 3-point land, and had 35 points to be the MVP in that All-Star game. And won by a landslide. I thought Team LeBron looked terrific. I think had the better 5 in general. Maybe if Kevin Durant was in as a starter, I think it could have been a little bit different. But we're going to move on. I want to talk about Blake Griffin. He just signed with the Brooklyn Nets. He is reuniting with one of his good friends from the former LA Clipper, DeAndre Jordan, now a Brooklyn Net as well. But I'm going to start with Brandon over here. Brandon, I got to ask, now we're going to see 2 reunions in Brooklyn. We're going to see James Harden, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan. Is this a big deal or not a big deal?
I think it's a bit of both. Just because at the same time, just because of the name Blake Griffin, it still brings, like I said, just that all-star, name. And obviously, like I said, just breaking news, instead of it just being an ESPN bottom line, it's like, oh, he signed, whatever. But I think with Blake's play style, it's definitely diminished from how he previously played, obviously when he was in LA, and obviously we could say that was due to before the knee injuries, before the surgeries, before father time just took over. But I think with the Nets play style, with having an incredible passer and just high basketball IQ players such as Kyrie, and off of just the offensive scoring and that they have with Kevin Durant, and also with game will be similar to that of like Jeff Green's in a way. Of course, like I said, it's not going to be the same like Blake Griffin that's going to be scoring 18 to 20 points a game, but he will be vital, I would say, to their offense, to just being able to have just another all-star firepower that can, if need be, or is capable of scoring at least 20-something points in one of those games. Obviously not as consistent, but again, I think in general, it's a pretty big deal.
I think for me, I mean, when I think of the name Blake Griffin, is synonymous to obviously the Glob City with the Clippers. And, I think a lot of people really enjoyed that period of time, which Blake Griffin really took over the league. But his play style hasn't really adapted to the new age of the NBA, which I've said it already in this episode, is the 3-point ball. He doesn't have that great of a 3-point shot. So that means already it doesn't matter if you're a guard or a forward or a center, especially when you're a center. Like the new job as a center is to be able to do a little bit of everything, and that includes shooting the 3-point ball. And for Blake Griffin, he can do it, but it's not at an efficient standard in which, he's good enough that he warrants a starting job. I think that his role on the team kind of be like a 6-man off the bench. I think that suits him with where he's at in his career and with the play style that he brings to the Brooklyn Nets. And I think it could be beneficial to the Nets in some capacity. But my issue is, and we'll talk about players like LaMarcus Aldridge and Andre Drummond in a sec as well. But when it comes to the playoffs, you're seeing more and more of a smaller lineup from these teams, relying more on the perimeter shot rather than having the one big guy down low. In essence, it's more like a 5v4. And that's a situation that the Heat had when they had Bam Adebayo. Although he was playing well, he's still a liability because he can't shoot the perimeter. And like that's, again, just part of the NBA nowadays, and that's something that Blake Griffin is going to have to get used to as a member of the Nets.
Yeah, when I agree with Steven. Whenever I think of Blake Griffin, I always think of the Lob City Clippers that always gave the Warriors such a hard time in the playoffs before the Warriors started heating up. But now we're going to go to Andre Drummond. Steven really segues in the next segment. I'm going to throw this question at him. But now the Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets are interested in signing Andre Drummond if he is bought out by the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's weird to say Andre Drummond's had such an interesting career, dominant performance with the Pistons, goes over to the Cavaliers, is still their top guy, and now he is sitting out right now. He's wondering if he's getting bought out or not. It's kind of like with the whole Blake Griffin situation happening in Detroit, and finally it does happen. Now, Steven, if he goes to the Nets, do you think that's gonna put Brooklyn over the top? You think they're gonna win this? Or if he goes to the Lakers, does that put the when they get Anthony Davis back, does that put them in we're gonna win the NBA Finals and we're gonna cruise on by any team in the Western Conference?
Well, I think that either way, whether he goes to the Lakers or the Nets, I think both teams will make the finals in some way. For Andre Drummond, I think he'd fit better with the Lakers. I mean, we've already tested to Blake Griffin and also DeAndre Jordan, two guys that can't really shoot the 3 ball that well, already being big men a part of that Nets squad. We saw that from the Lakers last year. That worked out pretty well with Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee. As I said, we saw them less and less as the playoffs continued, but they still, while they were on the court, they still provided some type of impact. And I think Andre Drummond will be the perfect backup center for the Lakers to give AD a little bit of a refresher on the bench. He provides. I mean, obviously he's like a 2-time rebound champion for rebounds per game in a season. So the guy is a proven just stud. Below the rim, grab all the rebounds, and then put in offensive rebound opportunities, some putbacks. But again, it's similar to Blake Griffin. It'll be similar to what I say about LaMarcus Aldridge. If you can't shoot the 3-point ball as the season progresses, you won't see as much time. But I think that both teams are going to make it to the finals, in my opinion, at this point in the midseason finals for me is Lakers and Nets. So he wouldn't provide like a big impact, or he'd be like one of the key reasons why the Lakers or the Nets go to the finals, but I think he'd be more beneficial with LA.
Big Boykins, I'm going to throw this question at you. You're a Lakers fan yourself here. I haven't been a big fan of Marc Gasol this entire season. I think it was sad to see JaVale and Dwight walk out, leave the team, and the Lakers just weren't interested in bringing him back, but they brought back a veteran of Marc Gasol who's won with Toronto. Is this going to put Marc Gasol in the hot seat if Andre Drummond does go to the Lakers? And Do you believe he's going to go to the Lakers, or do you think he has a better chance of going to the Nets?
I think he has a really a better shot to sign with both teams, but off of comparing the different play styles and the needs of the Lakers compared to the needs of the Nets, I think Andre Drummond better fits with the Lakers, just because, like you said, the Marc Gasol moves similar to a glacier. You know, if as being harsh as I can, and a lot of Lakers fans out there will agree with me that again he can space the floor, and again he can pass the ball remotely well, which, like I said, definitely helps with LeBron, and like I said, this new age of basketball of of having a big man that if you are, then you have to do a bit of everything, be able to rebound, shoot the ball, and everything. But with Marc Gasol, that's also the downside, is that you're not getting again that same Memphis Grizzlies 20-something-year-old Marc Gasol, where he's able to body everyone down low and at the same time still shoot at a very efficient level outside of the three-point range. But now he can shoot remotely well and pass, yes, but I mean he's creating a lot of fouls against bigger guys such as Joel Embiid, because again he's not that same defensive player as he was some odd years ago. So with, like you said, with the missing pieces such as a rim protector, of not having JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard, I think, like I said, that puts a lot of strain on Marc Gasol to end up getting a foul and having that play style, like I said, of having Montrezl Harrell, which again, nothing against him, but again, you can see when it comes to him facing off against Joel Embiid or Rudy Gobert and a bunch of other 7-foot guys that he's completely undersized. And again, if he ends up getting in foul trouble, then you have to rely on Markieff Morris, who again is even more undersized. So just not having a rim protector or a guy that has the similar play style of a JaVale McGee or of a Dwight Howard, in which their only job is to get rebounds and if they're near the basket, lob it up and dunk it. That's really it. So I think off of Andre Drummond's big man play style and just rebound capability, I think, like I said, that definitely helps the Lakers more on that end of the offense and also defensive court, just because of just being very undersized and also very slow due to Marc Gasol's play. So again, I think Andre Drummond would be a better fit with the Lakers than I believe he would be with the Nets. If he signed with the Nets, I'll be honest, I'm most likely going to give it to the Nets because again, both teams still have a shot at easily making the playoffs. But with maybe 5 All-Stars, and on your roster, such as if the Nets or if Andre Drummond were to sign with the Nets, then I think that would immediately put them, over the top of every team in winning the championship, not even just reaching the finals. But I think if he does end up signing with the Lakers, I think that's still an even more incredible matchup, I think, to see when both teams, hopefully reach the finals, and would just be more interesting to see just as the season progresses.
It'd be interesting to see another reunion. 2 former Detroit Pistons could meet up at Brooklyn, or they could be competing against each other in possibly the NBA Finals from an East or Western Conference matchup. So, it's an interesting situation to really see how you could see Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond either competing against each other or having a reunion once again. Now, Big Skinny, I'm going to go to you on this one. LaMarcus Aldridge and the Spurs have parted ways. LaMarcus Aldridge was supposed to maybe be the guy that could have been like the Tim Duncan, but not really the Tim Duncan. It was a weird scenario, and it just didn't really plan out. It didn't work out the way it wanted to, and they thought maybe pairing DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge was really going to work out. Can we see a reunion in Portland with LaMarcus Aldridge and Damian Lillard once again?
I think that's a very much a possibility. I think LaMarcus Aldridge could I mean alongside with Enes Kanter has had a good season. I think LaMarcus Aldridge would be a terrific addition to the team. And I mean, for LaMarcus Aldridge, I mean, he shoots 46% from the floor. He shoots about 36% from downtown. That's still pretty reliable but the only issue with the Spurs is that it's like, okay, like, you know, we're going to be playing it less and less because we want to try out these younger guys. You know, we're just going to have to part ways. And that's understandable. But for Aldridge, he still has a decent amount of the tank left. I think he can provide an instant impact for this Trailblazers team. And for the Trailblazers, I'd recommend saying like, hey, let's give you like, you know, a rest of the season type of contract, and then it'll be up to you whether you want to come back with us full time for next season and beyond, or you want to try out for another team. Maybe, I mean, you can't hate on players anymore trying to chase for a ring, but I mean, for Aldridge, he would like to chase a ring. I would not be surprised if if he did that. So if that was on his mind. So, Portland's a solid team, and they could use a little bit of big man help like him, and he also provides some matchups in which if Dame is getting double team in crunch time, LaMarcus Aldridge is a guy you can actually kind of rely on if he's in the corner and wide open for three. You can be confident with the fact that he could possibly drain it. So. I think that's a good move for Portland if they can get him.
And Brandon, I'm going to throw it to you. With the Spurs, was this parting ways? Was this a smart move for San Antonio? And if so, where does San Antonio really go from here? When they were playing in the NBA bubble, I was talking to Andrew Nepson. This team did not have LaMarcus Aldridge, and they played a whole different style of basketball without him. So what really is going to happen for the San Antonio Spurs? Do you think they still remain an NBA contender without LaMarcus Aldridge, or do you think they fall off a bit?
Well, I mean, as you were saying, was I mean, with LaMarcus Aldridge playing less and less minutes now, like I said, so they can, you know, check out more of their rookies and sort of the more of the younger guys that they've picked up to see how well they can develop and see, you know, how far they are with almost just hitting the restart button. So I think all in all, obviously it was a smart choice for both sides to just agree on that. Unfortunately, like I said, the LaMarcus Aldridge route of having him trying to become the next Tim Duncan, unfortunately didn't pan out. But I think with having him reunite with Dame Time and CJ McCollum, and Carmelo and the rest of that squad in Portland, I think is an even better what's the word for? I want to say just like
better opportunity
for both teams. Yes, exactly. To like I said, to just re-up everything that they had and just take another crack at seeing how far they can get in the playoffs. So I think if the Trailblazers were to pick them up, I think that would definitely put the Blazers, or I would give the Blazers a bit more of a boost on the offensive end because, again, back to what Steve was saying was that he still has juice left in the tank. He can still shoot very efficient from the field. So I think all in all, smart choice for San Antonio. I think again, this is a great opportunity for the Spurs to see what they have in their young guys and see again just how far they are in just redeveloping that entire team again. And for the Trailblazers, I think, like I said, that gives them definitely a bit more of an offensive boost because of the shooting percentage and opportunities that LaMarcus Aldridge can still provide.
And I believe Greg Popovich, you know, he made the right decision with parting ways with Marcus Aldridge, and the San Antonio Spurs are going to be better off. They're still a playoff contending team.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're finally getting the 3-point game down. Because Greg Popovich, I know the big skinny knows, we talked to Nepson about this. San Antonio Spurs weren't really a big 3-point type of team until, they tried that kind of out in the bubble and it worked out. DeMar DeRozan has been looking great. He's been looking like the MVP for that team. And, my big fan of DeJounte Murray. I love DeJounte Murray. I will talk about him all day long. But I know we need to get to one more thing, and I know we only got that less than 10-minute mark on Zoom. So I'm going to go that NBA standings, that beautiful NBA standings, and the big skinny. This is the mid-season. We're at the mid-season mark. I know we've talked about the 1 through 3 Eastern Conference, and we go from 4 to 12, and it's really up for grabs at this point. Steven, what do you have to say so far about the Eastern Conference standings? Anything stand out to you?
I think what stands out to me is just just like the huge gap in between the real contenders for the Eastern Conference, which I would say is Philly and Brooklyn, and then the rest of the competition. I think Milwaukee is definitely missing a step. I think giving away Eric Bledsoe during the offseason has kind of been has put like a negative spotlight on the defense. The Bucks are giving up more points per game than they did last year. They're just not as really overall efficient as a group, and I think this is just going to be another year in which Giannis and company will be underachieving over in Milwaukee. And everybody else is just it's just a fight to make it to the second round of playoffs, because you're either going to lose to Brooklyn, Philly, or Milwaukee in the first round. So if you don't play either of those 3 teams, hey, good luck. You won't make it past the second round. So it's nice to see the Knicks above 500, but when it comes to playoff time, when it really counts, it's not going to matter.
Big Boykins, I'm going to throw it out to you. I mean, Steven said it, the 1 through 3 looks pretty solid, but man, that number 4 and below looks very intriguing to say the least. It looks like it's like a free-for-all out there. Does this at least 4 through 8 look pretty, locked in? Like those teams are locked in, or do you think that 9, 10, and possibly 11 seed teams could really get in that 4 through 8?
I think in a way, like Steve was saying, was that the first 3 spots they're pretty much a lock. If anything, it's probably a battle between the Nets and the Sixers on who's getting who's officially getting the first spot in the playoffs, which in my books, I think it might be the Nets, but again, I don't might be wrong. All in all, the 3 spots are for a lock. The final 4 to 10, I think, like you said, it's pretty much a free for all. I think the Knicks things still surprisingly have a shot because by how incredible Julius Randle has played, and with Boston pretty much trying to keep up as much as they can with the top 3 teams. I think all in all, the 4 to the 10 spot is pretty much a free for all. So all in all, I think it's more of a free for all more in the East than compared to the West, where I'm not saying it's more of a lock, but again, there's more for sure teams in the West, I think, that have their spots set than the East, where it's just more. Back again, what Steve was saying was, if you're not facing those 3 teams, then good luck getting past the first and maybe the second round.
Well, I think my favorite team so far throughout this midseason has been the Miami Heat. They somehow get back to an even 500, and I think they're going to be a team to mess with. I think they could possibly get that 4th, 5th seed. I think they're going to really fight for it, and then they'll have to go against those top 3 Eastern Conference teams. Now, quickly, we're going to move on here. Western Conference, shout out to NBA.com for the standings. We look at the Utah Jazz, we look at the Suns, we look at the Lakers and Clippers as that kind of top 4, and you can even include the Portland Trailblazers are also competing in that top 4 spot, being the 5th seed, and that 6th seed Denver Nuggets. It's all 20 wins and above from there, and that 7 through 10 is just a really big wild card. Big Skinny, I got to go with you. You have talked about how the Suns weren't going to be that playoff team. They now have surprisingly made up to the 2nd seed in the Western Conference. Anything else really stand out to you in the Western Conference? Anything you weren't expecting to happen?
I wasn't. I mean, obviously, I wasn't expecting the Jazz to be this dominant. I mean, their 3-point shooting, their depth off the bench has been nothing short but incredible so far this year. And I'll just do a little spoiler alert. We have the midseason awards coming up in a bit, and Jordan Clarkson's my sixth man of the year at the moment. I mean, he's been absolutely insane. He's putting up more than 20 points per game off the bench for the Jazz. You have your usual guys in Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, but I mean, it's just been an all around just a team effort to put up this insane of a record. And yeah, they've definitely got a little bit of help with the fact that the Lakers are going through some injuries right now. And but again, I'll say it once, I'll say it again. I'm not concerned about the Lakers. LeBron could be, the LeBron company can be a 6 seed if all I care, and they'll still make the finals. It's just make the playoffs and then turn on the playoff mode button, and it's perfect for the Lakers. And then, like you said, the Suns, the pieces are finally around Devin Booker. It's really nice to see that. It's a shame we didn't get to see him in the All-Star game, representing this really, really good Suns team along with CP3. But no, that's the biggest shock for me, probably Phoenix being, the 2 seed. And then 7 through 10, that's going to come down probably to the final day of the year. I'll be honest. It's just that tight.
And Brandon, I'm going to throw it to you. I know we got a little bit more time here, but if I had to say, does any of those 11 through 15 teams have a shot even to make some playoff contention or even make that 7 through 10 tournament?
I think so. I think more with as we were talking earlier. I think Golden State. I think still has a shot in keeping their spot, whether in the 7th or 8th seed. I think going back to shocker for me, I think again would be the Suns and even just the Jazz themselves. I mean, none of us were expecting the Jazz to come out this hot from the 3-point range and expecting their especially their bench to be playing short of remarkable. Just this entire season, this first half of the season. So I think all in all, there's maybe one or two teams, maybe in the West, I would say has a shot of fighting for maybe the final 2 spots. But all in all, I think the West is almost a lot.
Well, that's all the time we got for the first half. Coming up next, we have the all-time 5 Sacramento Kings debate as Big Boykins is going to be the moderator, and, hopefully he'll pick me this week, but hey, we'll see what happens. Then we have the mid-season awards, and we have our hot and cold teams and players coming up next on episode 8 of the West Coast Heat Check. Hello, and welcome back to the West Coast Heat Check, episode 8. If you guys are just tuning in, I got the Big Boykins, who's our special guest here today. He's from KTVN2 News. He's an editor and a co-worker of mine. And, of course, the Big Skinny has always been here every week showing off, and the host has been out for his 2nd time. But we do have the 2nd guest as a moderator for the all-time 5 debate, and is the Sacramento Kings. Big Boykins, you have a lot of pressure. You have big decisions to make, but you also get to listen to some history here today. I might learn something you didn't even know about the Sacramento Kings. So, Big Boykins, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Since Steve had won the last one, I think we're going to go to him for his top 5.
All right, let's get going. So we'll start at number 5, Brandon. I'm going to go with Vlade Divac. I think without question, I think the best free agent signing in Sacramento Kings history. He kind of filled in a perfect role as a counterpart to Chris Webber on that early 2000s Kings team that threatened the Lakers in the Pacific Division in that Western Conference. And the stats aren't really flashy. They're really not. I mean, this guy's a Hall of Famer for just being a consistently reliable guy. Over 6 seasons with the Kings, averaged 11.5 points per game, And he got his only All-Star appearance with during his time in Sacramento. Again, the stats are not flashy, but his impact, the skills that he brought, on both sides of the court, were huge. With Chris Webber, with Mike Bibby, with PJ Stojakovic. So some just really some solid players on that team. We'll get to one of those guys, another one of those guys in just a sec. But Vlade Divac at number 5. At number 4, I'm going to go with DeMarcus Cousins. He played 7 seasons with the Kings. I would say the majority of his success in his career came with the Sacramento Kings. He had that really good stretch with the Pelicans for, I think it was about like a year and a half, or maybe just a year, and then the injuries started piling up, which is definitely has hampered his career post Kings. But we're only focusing on the Kings career, and look at his PER. I'll pull it up in just a sec. Player efficiency rating, which Brandon doesn't know that I hamper over the analytics, the advanced analytics in the NBA. DeMarcus Cousins is second all time in PER. The reason why I didn't put him up higher is because of the team success. There wasn't really any. They didn't make the playoffs any of his during any of his years in Sacramento. But he was just a solid player. He was the franchise player for that team. He averaged 21 points per game, 10 and a half rebounds per game. He was the guy as soon as he got drafted to when he got traded to New Orleans. But because of the playoffs, the lack of playoff success, or just lack of playoff appearances, he's only at number 4 for me. At number 3, I'm going to go with Mitch Richmond, shooting guard. Who played, I believe it was 7 seasons with Sacramento, spent some time with Golden State, with Washington. He won a ring at the end of his career with the Lakers, but his time in Sacramento was fantastic. All 6 of his All-Star appearances came in Sacramento. All 5 of his All-NBA nods came when he was a part of the Sacramento Kings. An All-Star Game MVP. This guy was he was solid. And I would say, he was before the Webber, Bibby, Stojakovic, Vlade Divac team, but he was just a solid. Then for the team, than I think I've ever seen, except for 2 other guys, which I'll get to in a sec. 23.3 points per game over 7 seasons. Again, going back to the analytics here, offensive win shares, he's top 10 in offensive win shares, and just general win shares, he's also top 10. So just an overall solid guy throughout the course of his Kings career. He's also 3rd in total points in Kings history. At number 2, I'm going to go with Chris Webber. Number 3 on PER. This guy was a stud. He was the main guy, the catalyst for the aforementioned early 2000s Kings teams. Over 7 seasons, 23.5 points, 10.5 rebounds. It sounds very, very similar, almost exactly the same to DeMarcus Cousins. But the reason why he's at number 2 is the playoff success, the teams that he was a part of, the impact that he brought to those teams, and the threat of unseating the Lakers dynasty, the Kobe and Shaq show in the late 90s, early 2000s. Solid guy. In terms of Sacramento Kings history, just for the Sacramento Kings, he is by far their best player of all time. But we're talking about the overall greatest of all time in Kings history. So we got to go back to the Cincinnati Royals, who drafted in the 1960 draft with their first overall pick, my number 1 Kings player of all time, Oscar Robertson. The resume speaks for itself. Spent 10 seasons with the Cincinnati Royals, who would later become the Sacramento Kings. Was an all-star in every single season. He was a 3-time all-star MVP, 11-time NBA. Was an all-NBA every single year with the Cincinnati Royals. I believe it was 6 seasons in which he averaged 30 or more points per game, 4 seasons in which he averaged more than 11 rebounds. He's up there as one of the most impactful players in that generation, along with Kareem, along with Wilt, Just more of those bigger guys that were just dominating the NBA back in the early 60s into the early 70s. Without a doubt, the undisputed number one Kings player of all time, Oscar Robertson.
All right. Well, with a list I was going to say is when you sent me your top five was obviously you pay a lot of attention to the player percentage and just how effective they are that way. I was curious as to why you didn't choose a traditional starting five with a point guard, shooting guard, wing guy, and power forward and center, of course.
That's just that kind of discredits some of the guys who are definitely deserving to be in the top five. I wouldn't say that the top five has to be, sorted out by position. Oscar Robertson, DeMarcus Cousins, and Chris Webber played the same positions in a sense, like center or power forward. But if I just did a lineup in which I only had one choice for power forward between Cousins and Webber, that's going to be a difficult choice, and that's something that I didn't want to really go into. Player efficiency rating for DeMarcus Cousins is 22.4. Chris Webber is 22.3. That's how similar they are. Their impact on an every game basis, and then also I wanted to shout out to Vlade Divac. His numbers aren't illustrious in really anybody's franchise history, but his impact, off the score sheet was huge. And I think that would be a disservice to him as well. Having obviously Robertson, who's undisputed, would be the center, but having Divac off of it.
All right. And with that, we'll have to pass the torch over to our boy Rob and see what your starting five was.
Okay, so Steven, I don't know how we somehow get most of our lists correct. I think we just have the same minds that think alike most of the time. My top four is the same as your top four. So I'm going to name off that, and then I'm going to go why I disagree with your top five. So DeMarcus Cousins is my number 4. He was the leader in the points per game since he was a Sacramento King. I mean, what was it? Tyreek Evans the season before was their guy, and then it became DeMarcus Cousins as the main guy. He just never had the talent surrounding him. Maybe his best player was, if I'm not mistaken, Isaiah Thomas was probably the second best player during his time. Debatable. I mean, he had Rondo. It's just crazy to think that there's just some of these wild players that played for the Sacramento Kings. It didn't really help out DeMarcus Cousins at all. He kind of just sat there like a sitting duck. Now with Mitch Richmond, he was my number 3 as well. Spending 7 seasons. And he was a special assistant to the general manager doing 2013, 2014 to the 2014-2015 season of the NBA. Mitch Richmond really did stand out to me. He was the 1994-95 All-Star Game MVP. He did actually become NBA champion for the LA Lakers back in 2002. He was definitely, he's called the Rock, the Hammer as his nicknames for the Sacramento Kings. I love Mitch Richmond in his Sacramento Kings uniform as well as a Golden State Warriors uniform as well. But he was mostly known as a King. With number 2, of course, you got to go Chris Webber, man. That season that he could have beat the Lakers, man. He was one of the main reasons why. During his time as a Sacramento King, he spent the 7 seasons. He averaged 23.5 points a game, 4.8 assists. For rebounds wise, he was 10.6 a game. He was just such a dominant player for the Kings. He was really fun to watch. I mean, that early 2000s team, we know that Kings team had a legitimate shot of going to that NBA Finals against the Lakers. However, to this day, thinks they got cheated out of it. But, hey, history tells itself at the end of the day. I mean, you see the tape. But Oscar Robertson, I mean, come on, man. Mr. Triple-Double himself, we're going to say he's number 1 no matter what. I mean, the Royals, man, the man was just unbelievable. For 10 seasons, I mean, almost averaged 30 points a game, 29.3 to be exact, 10.3 assists, and 8.5 rebounds. Oh my goodness. I mean, he is a man to watch. A lot of people that sometimes compare him to Russell Westbrook. So he has to be the number one. But, oh, Steven, the reason why I have to disagree with you is because Stojakovic, come on, man. Are we not going to forget about this man? He got it. I mean, I will give Divac, he did get his jersey retired too, but Stojakovic has to be in there in 8 seasons, 18.3 points a game, 5 rebounds, 3 all-star appearances. And he was part of the early 2000s teams too as well. He helped compete. I mean, he was basically before his prime too. He was at the 24, 25 age. He wasn't even at that 29, 30 age, but a lot of people can't say he was during his prime. I mean, 03, 04, he had 24.2 points a game. He was a part of the all NBA team in the 03, 04 season. Eventually he did become a 2011 NBA champion, but he was drafted first round. He was the 14th pick for the Sacramento Kings. I think he left. I think he was, I mean, as much as you could say maybe Vlade Divac was more a part of a bigger reason during those early 2000s team, I think Stojakovic has to be the guy. I mean, he does lead the Sacramento Kings all-time three-point field goals, 3-point field goal attempts. His PER, if actually does not lay in the top 10, and I know Steven's gonna be like, well, that's gonna be the deciding factor in that, but his free throw percentage, he has the best free throw percentage in a Sacramento King uniform. And Vlade Divac is not on top 10 for all-time games for the Sacramento Kings. Stojakovic had played more games than Vlade Divac. He has 518 compared, I believe like 400 something more in the higher 400s for Vlade Divac. So I got to give my boy Stojakovic. He's still the leader in 3-point field goals, which I believe Buddy Hield will eventually pass. But that's why I pick Stojakovic in my all-time 5.
Well, nah, I assume you're probably ready to just tear them apart. I assume with whichever one of your analysis is, and I will swing that over to you.
Well, I mean, I thought long and hard about this between Divac and PJ Stojakovic, and I thought, in my opinion, Vlade Divac, although the numbers in terms of franchise history go against Divac's way, I think that Vlade Divac was more of an impact down low on both sides of the floor than PJ Stojakovic. Not to discredit PJ Stojakovic at all, but I don't believe that Stojakovic offered enough on the defensive side of the ball rather than Vlade Divac. Divac is number 4 in franchise history in the department of defensive win shares, which is actually better than DeMarcus Cousins and slightly worse than Oscar Robertson. That's just how much of an impact he brought to the team, along with Chris Webber. So for Stojakovic, it was honestly a coin toss between Stojakovic and Divac for the number 5 spot. But I thought at the end of the day, Divac provided more for the team, especially during those big runs in the playoffs in the early 2000s than Stojakovic.
All right. Well, guess we'll finally get it to the deciding factor of it all, and picking. As I have to say, I have to give it to Steve. I do. I have to give it to him, because with this list, I mean, for me personally, every single point that he put down, I personally have to agree on. I mean, obviously, being a Lakers fan, the Kings, along with like the Boston Celtics, aren't like my number one team to follow up with and follow every single stat and everything. But from the eye test, and obviously, just following the Kings and Lakers matchups over all the years, decades. I mean, the players from Steve's list was similar to exactly what I would have picked. Exactly what I would have picked. Spot on. And for Riley, like I said, I think obviously we all agreed, except off of the fact of having Peja Stojakovic. And again, nothing against him and his 3-point percentage, free throw percentage, but all in all, I think for me, off of just the eye test, along with just the stats themselves, I personally would have gone with substituting Peja's career with Vladi or with any of the other members on that list, on that top 5 list. So yeah, bro, I know I'm sorry. You're I can probably just feel you on the other side of the screen, just ready to just punch the camera and just end this this show. But
I don't know if you know that this is the part where the winner, me, will get my time to shine. I mean, say Robert has happily muted himself for this reason. I mean, this was a tough top 5, but it's just another dub in the book of the Big Skinny. Was it I mean, again, like these debates, they don't have to be exactly like correct. And a lot of people out there who's going to watch this are going to say, "Oh yeah, Peja Stojakovic is top 5," but everybody has an opinion. And with Brandon, I didn't even know Brandon had affiliations with the Lakers. This is something that I made up before the show. I think it was like yesterday. I got this assembled as top 5. So I thought Vlade Divac was a bigger impact, and I appreciate it, Robert. Thank you, man. I can sense your anger from all the way here in Tucson. Oh, my apologies. Wrong button.
I'm speechless today, so you know what? I'm just going to move on to the awards at this point. I just thought Stojakovic had it in. I mean, the value over replacement player, he does lead over Vlade Divac, but it's okay. It's okay. We get through every day, you know.
I understand, and that's exactly why I was asking, Steve, compared to yours, like why, your starting 5 why your top 5 wasn't a traditional starting 5, like if the same thing, like if it were to come to people just building a Mount Rushmore of like who would you put as your top 5 of all time? Obviously, there'll be certain people that switch up their centers or their point guards and their wings. Literally every single position will be debatable, but it's just one of those, like, people would just more put the names compared to the stats, or for some, comparing their PER, or like I said, or again, just the different effectiveness compared to the player. So that was my biggest thing, is was that why, did you both, pick the just traditional just 5 of all time instead of just, a traditional top 5 of all time, or starting 5 of all time. Sorry.
Well, Brant, it was great having you as a moderator. I'm happy that we got, a different perspective once in a while, because, we got Nick Rice, but it's always good to have someone different on once in a while, always giving a different perspective. So I appreciate it. Steven, congratulations once again, but let's move on. We got mid-season awards to move on to, and I know I want to say regular season MVP for the very end, but I do want to start. Interesting. He is the 6th player to do this, to lead in points, rebounds, steals, and I think another category, if I'm not mistaken. LaMelo Ball, I believe, is my pick for Rookie of the Year right now for the Charlotte Hornets, and he actually just got confirmed the Charlotte Hornets will make him a starter throughout the rest of the season. So congratulations to LaMelo Ball. I think he's deserved it. It looks like he's been in the league for a while. I mean, if being coming from, I believe, Australia to here, he has proven so much, and he has shown a lot. He's a lot better than his brother Lonzo. I mean, we've all have seen it, and Michael Jordan just he said he was going to be a problem in the league, and he has been. He has been that guy. I'm going to move it to our moderator, Brandon Boykins here, but who do you think is your rookie of the year? I mean, you've seen a lot. A lot of people love Tyrese Halliburton as well, but if you had to pick your mid-season rookie of the year, who would it be?
To be honest, I'm going exactly what you had picked with LaMelo. I mean, he's played phenomenal since his first game in the league, or at least since his first debut. Obviously, his effectiveness, on the court, on the defense and offensive end, has played so much of a bigger part in them winning games and even coming close to winning some of the games that they've lost, compared to what his brother Lonzo has done, so far in his career. Again, just even greater news to just hear that they're deciding on making him a starter, which we could probably say was probably Jordan's greatest greatest draft pick and probably best decision that he's made probably since being a GM in Charlotte. So I think all in all, congrats to LaMelo, and yeah, I think he's been my pick since his debut for rookie of the year.
We don't have to go any further than that. I have LaMelo Ball as a unanimous MVP, not MVP, a rookie of the year. I mean, there's a pretty sizable gap between what LaMelo has offered to the NBA so far in the likes of like Anthony Edwards or James Wiseman. James Wiseman got hurt, but I mean it's clear LaMelo Ball is the rookie of the year, and hopefully if he doesn't get hurt, if he stays healthy, he will definitely win that come the end of this season. I'd like to segue to let's go to sixth man of the year, because I already mentioned this earlier in the show, and I think this might be unanimous for all three of us. I'm going to go Jordan Clarkson. I mentioned him as a sixth man of the year contender on the very first episode of the show back in January, and I'm sticking to it. So Jordan Clarkson, number one, part of the number one team in the Western Conference, is my mid-season choice for sixth man of the year.
I think Jordan Clarkson, ever since he got out of the LA Cleveland era and has moved to the Utah Jazz, he's been their second best scorer on that team. And he was a starter for LA in his second season. He started every game, and then he slowly declined on not starting. And I think it's just made him a better player. Like, he comes off the bench, he brings the energy, he brings the spark that team needs for Utah. I mean, Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley, he's that guy that just plugs in and knows how to get the job done. It's crazy to think I maybe thought I was going to see this whole D'Lo, Jordan Clarkson, Julius Randle kind of Lakers squad and Brandon Ingram. Like, crazy to think that could have been a dream come true. I know, Brandon, looking at you, I mean, I'm just saying, like, seeing that Lakers team, that would have been really interesting. But Jordan Clarkson being on this Utah Jazz team, a lot of people didn't see this coming, but he's just getting better and better every season. And I think with Utah, I think this is going to be his home. I think he's better than a Lou Williams six man. Just calling it out right there.
I mean, what we all covered so far with Jordan Clarkson, it's been he's played phenomenal coming off the bench. It's definitely a shocker to me, because I know for sure I was not expecting him to really have this big of an impact with Utah. But then again, we weren't even expecting Utah, as we said earlier, to even be this hot as a team in the NBA, especially in the West. So it's just another thing, like I said, of just how incredible he's been to just for Utah, for them to pick him up during the offseason and for him to be the perfect just plug in play player for him to immediately come off the bench, provide that spark, that amazing shooting capability from 3-point range. I mean, he's been great.
All right, I'll segue that to our coach of the year. And my midseason coach of the year prediction or pick is Monty Williams. I'll admit to it once again. The Big Skinny's first ever guarantee of the show has just proven yet again to backfire. So I'm going to swallow my words here and pick Monty Williams of the Suns to be coach of the year. I think it's going to be between him and Quinn Snyder. I don't really see like Doc Rivers. Like there's already like a winning track record that he's bringing to Philly. That's kind of obvious in a way. And then what we're seeing out of the Nets and the Bucks is, I think as usual as well. We mentioned it, the Suns are the surprise team, and for that reason, Monty Williams should be credited for that with the Coach of the Year award.
I think when I think of Coach of the Year, I'm not really thinking Eastern Conference because we don't really think how competitive the Eastern Conference is compared to the Western Conference. If you could compete in a Western Conference and you could be that 1 through 4 seed, you're doing something right. You're getting the job done. You're staying at the top seed. And I mean, it's between Quinn Snyder and Monty Williams at this point. I agree with Steven on this. It's not even debate, but I think I'm going to go Quinn Snyder. I think no one expected the Utah Jazz to be a number 1 seed. And if they do maintain this number 1 seed, Quinn Snyder has to be Coach of the Year, hands down. It just has to happen. I mean, I could see Monty Williams possibly being that guy too. I mean, if he gets it over the Lakers and the Clippers, that's pretty impressive on its own. I mean, you got Chris Paul, you've made DeAndre Ayton just a better player all around, and Devin Booker has just looked really amazing this year. You love to see how Devin Booker's just been progressing ever since he's been a Sun and finally getting that tools around him. So, but I have to go Utah Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson. I could name so many guys, but I love the Jazz.
I think for me, I think we all be in agreement with Monty Williams. Again, at first, I definitely would have wanted to say Doc Rivers or possibly even Steve Nash. Doc Rivers' coaching career and seeing how, like Steve was saying, how he had pretty much a winning culture and a winning just dynamic, just already following him on his way into Philly. It was already kind of a done deal. For Steve Nash, I think it was incredible for him to be in his first ever NBA coaching career and to have such a dominant offensive backcourt that he's able to, have the opportunity to win a championship in his first year. I think is definitely incredible. But definitely off of what we've seen with Monty Williams developing Ayton and just like you said, seeing Devin Booker become the incredible all-star that he is now ever since being drafted is just another stat we could say to him being Coach of the Year.
So we have enough time to go into a conversation about MVP. Let's go through a bit of a speed round for these next 2 awards. That'll be Most Improved Player and then Defensive Player of the Year. Let's start with Most Improved Player. I'm gonna go with Jeremy Grant with the Pistons. He's made the huge leap, although no one's talking about it because Detroit is really, really bad. He's been great, and he was my hot player pick a few weeks back. So Jeremy Grant, Most Improved Player.
My most improved player is going to have to go to the New York Knicks. I'm going to go Julius Randle. He's averaging over 23 points a game, 11 rebounds per game. His 3-point percentage went from basically like 27% to 40% this season. So give the man some credit. He's leading this team to a playoff berth, and New York Knicks fans could be happier than ever.
And I'll have to agree with you, Rob, with going with Julius Randle. The man has shown even in his final season in LA, when he was averaging about 18 points a game, that he had the potential to to be the next All-Star, the next big man in LA. But unfortunately, him and LA unfortunately didn't have apparently didn't agree enough on a contract, which for me it's still questionable till this day. But all in all, I have to give it to the man of how incredible he's been since going to New York with, like I say, and just for the Knicks fans all over, they couldn't be happier and even more surprised by how well Julius Randle has been for their team.
All right, let's move it to Defensive Player of the Year. I'll be choosing Rudy Gobert to go for his third Defensive Player of the Year award out of the Utah Jazz.
I wanted to pick Rudy Gobert, but I'm going to pick something different. I'm going to go Miles Turner out of the Indiana Pacers. He's averaging 3.4 blocks a game. That's a career high for this guy. And ever since Oladipo left, it's been a Sabonis, Miles Turner kind of show. And I have loved seeing how Miles Turner just keeps improving every season. And I think defensively, he's just a monster down there. I mean, Joel Embiid did throw him around a little bit, but hey, Joel Embiid has been Joel Embiid. He's been looking like an MVP this year. Besides that, Miles Turner, watching him, it looks like he can stop anybody down low, period. And I think running that zone defense, he definitely is that type of guy that just looks like a defensive monster down low.
And for me, I go with Rudy Gobert because I think with what we've seen over his career, especially this season with the Utah Jazz playing as remarkable as they are on defense, has been another just incredible stat line for them. So I think Rudy Gobert continues to keep that Defensive Player of the Year award going, or streak going.
Okay, and finally, our last mid-season award, the mid-season regular season Player of the Year. I'm gonna go with Joel Embiid. I mean, a lot of people are going to say the argument is for LeBron to win it because, of what he's been dealing with the team so far, battling through injuries and whatnot. But Joel Embiid has put himself onto just the elite level now. He's taken that huge step, similar to what we saw with Giannis a couple of years back. He's top 10 in points, rebounds, and blocks. I mean, this guy's been doing everything for Philadelphia. So Joel Embiid, my pick for midseason MVP.
I got to pick the 36-year-old LeBron James. Come on, I got to show my love for this man. Averaging 25 points a game, assists 7.8, total rebounds 8. I mean, the man's 36 and he's still putting up fantastic numbers. I mean, he's been an all-star since he's been 20 years old. And I don't think he's going to stop being an all-star until he's done with being in the NBA. So I think the way he's been playing, and he's shown that he's been leading this Lakers team without Anthony Davis, he's been just putting up phenomenal numbers, and he's a true leader. And we could say he's supposed to be MVP every season. But I think this year, at the age of 36, I think he really, really does deserve it.
And obviously, for any of our Laker fans out there, we already know we're rolling with the 36-year-old LeBron James. Obviously, Joel Embiid has played phenomenal this season, especially as, obviously not being so injured this year, has played an even bigger part, along with Ben Simmons playing as incredible as he has this season as well. Finally taking that large step in him finally just being more aggressive at the rim instead of being hesitant and especially at the field goal range, or 3-point range, and even just developing a jump shot for that matter. But all in all, with the team and without having Anthony Davis, and again being 36 years old, I think LeBron has continued to be the king and has continued to hold that crown on top of his head. And I think the only way he's given that up is until he officially retires from the NBA, which, is hopefully not hopefully not next year or anytime soon. But yeah, I think just with what he's been able to overcome and battle through this entire season with having such a short off season after winning the championship and very little rest, has been, like I said, it's just been incredible.
One last thing before we wrap things up here on this episode 8 of the West Coast Heat Check. I want to just admit to a mistake that I made at the beginning of the episode. Nick Rice, you're the winner of the All-Star Game prediction. I accidentally put in Cassius Stanley as the winner, not Anthony Simmons. Anthony Simmons was Nick's pick, the host's pick, and he's the winner of their All-Star Game prediction. Mr. Big Boykins, Brandon Boykins from KTVN News. Thank you so much for coming on as our guest. It was a true honor. Thank you for being our moderator. Thank you for being on with us as our guest. We look forward to having you on in one of our future episodes. For Mr. Boykins, for the Deits, and for myself, the Big Skinny, thank you for tuning in to this episode 8 of the West Coast Heat Check. We'll be seeing you next week, next Thursday at 8 a.m. We'll see you then.